So we are doing a little bit of a static masterclass here. Nice, right? Good times. Who likes doing static here? Who enjoys actually doing like static training? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, that is surprising. I said this in the last class, but by a great majority of people showing, most people do not like to train static. My theory is because of how we teach static in courses and sort of the certification model, which is in many ways a necessary evil. Where you come to a wave 1, and I'm the instructor, and I walk in and I'm like, hey, cool, my name is Brandon. I'm here to teach you how to dive safely and be nice and relaxed, and it's going to be really fun. You're going to really enjoy it. But you're going to have to do a 1.5 minutes static right off the bat. We'll cover a few things to sort of help you get more relaxed, but to pass the course, you have to do this 1.5 minute static. And because you've paid me money, and because this certification, this piece of paper that I have to give you in exchange for that has some kind of value, you feel the need to push, to go beyond what you might be comfortable doing. So even though I'm saying relax, just go by how you feel, don't push past what you're supposed to be doing, you still sort of have this underlying thing of like, well, I want to get the certification, so I'm going to do it. And that sort of scratches a little bit of a wound into your mind. And then you do all the rest of your diving stuff, and you're like, oh, that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. I'm going to do a wave 2. And I'm like, hey, Brandon here again. We're going to be diving. It's going to be really, really great. We're going to go based on how we feel, based on our enjoyment. But now it's 2.5 minutes that you have to do for a dry static, or for a static. And you're like, cool, well, the last one kind of sucked, but I've given you even more money now to get that random piece of paper that you were going to give me, so I guess I'll do it. And you do it again, and you scratch again, that same spot. And this time it opens up a little bit more. And over time, if that's how you're exposed to static, it is completely unsurprising to me how people go from like, yeah, static, to no, I don't want to touch static. Like for those of you who don't know, I do a lot of commentary at World Championship events. And the breakdown of people who train static versus who don't are the exact same as this room. Most of them do not train static because they don't like it. It doesn't feel good. They don't have fun. They think it's boring. And I'm here to tell you that that does not have to be the case. I have done all of my training in static for the last 4.5 years. I've never had a bad static session. It's always been fun, always been enjoyable, yes?
Do you need the whiteboard?
Nope. He can take the whiteboard. All of my sessions are fun. All of them are enjoyable. I always leave a session being like, okay, cool, that was really good. I have a little bit more in me. I'm ready for the next session. I want more. And so another show of hands, of those who do dry training, how often do you have that experience where you're like, that was really fun, I really enjoyed that, I want to do it again? 1, 2. Okay. You're doing my sessions. It doesn't count. Okay.
I'm doing yours as well.
Sorry?
I'm doing yours as well.
Yeah, okay. So if you're not doing mine, yeah, the number decreases even more. So all that is to say, there are ways to do dry static training or static training in the pool that are fun, are enjoyable, that don't make you hate yourself, that don't torture you, that feel good and fun. And I'm going to say something bold. I usually don't speak in like absolutes, But I'm going to say, if anybody tells you that you should be pushing, you should be feeling, like you should be pushing to your max, you should be doing torture tables, any kind of table that has a negative connotation to it, you should not do that table. Period. That is, again, perpetuating this idea that we have to push, we have to hurt, we have to feel the burn to see improvements. In the gym, yes, you pump iron, you feel the burn, that lets you know that you are working hard. When we're training static, when we are training our CO2, our O2, our central nervous system, we shouldn't feel anything. The improvements that come to our breath hold and to our tolerances come far before we experience any discomfort. What really matters is the overall amount of time that you do it for. Cool? Okay. So if anybody tells you we're going to do a static table, you run. Okay. So this this me talking at you is going to be basically why I love static and how I train static and how I have my clients train static and how many of you guys have done training of the static already doing the pre-deep week coaching calls. Cool. Good. So the first thing I will say when training static is to actually stay away from CO2 and O2 tables. That is probably a pretty controversial thing to say, as most people know that CO2 and O2 tables are the most common way of training static. They are very easily accessible. They're on your Stamina app. They're on all those types of apps that help you coach you through your breath hold training. I am going to say that you shouldn't do those because they don't account for your own sensations. When you're doing a CO2 or O2 training table, it gives you a start time that it gives you an end time, either of your recovery time or your breath hold time. So I need to hold my breath now for 2 minutes. I need to hold my breath for 3 minutes. I need to recover for 10 seconds. That sounds an awful lot like those certifications that we were talking about, right? The scratching again. We have to do this thing. We have to get to this number to get the gold sticker. We have to do this to complete the session. And you don't have to. That way, maybe it may have strong results. You may get to a point where you are really beefing through these CO2 or O2 tables, but you will inevitably get to a point where you have pushed too far. You are at a point where it's no longer fun. You no longer want to do the sessions. And unless you have someone pushing you or you have a very, very strong drive, you're going to stop. And then what happens from there? You miss a session. You miss another session. You do half of a session, it doesn't feel very good. And you keep sort of going back and back and back in your training. And then once again, you're like, okay, cool. Well, I have this comp coming up I really want to do. I need to start training again. I'm going to start doing those CO2 and O2 tables again. Big leap, big leap, big leap. But then you get burnt out. You miss a session. Things don't feel very good. Kind of sucked. So at the end of the day, you are here. You have done some training, you've seen some improvement, but you overall have not gone as far as if you had done fun session, a little bit, fun session, a little bit, fun session, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, all the way to the comp. Yeah? So how I train static is on set departure tables or interval tables, being the same thing. And what that is basically, for example, I will do 20 2-minute breath holds, or 20 2-minute intervals, excuse me, where in that time I decide I'm going to hold my breath for 1:30 and then recover for 30 seconds. Or I'm going to hold my breath for a minute and recover for a minute. Or I'm going to hold for basically the entire time, do an exhale and an inhale, and then continue again. In that way, you get to decide what the intensity is for yourself. You actually need to listen to what your body's telling you in order to do these types of sessions. And when you do a session with CO2 or O2 tables, that's sort of taken away from you. You just sort of push past and say, okay, cool, I just need to hold until I hear that alarm go off, and then I can recover frantically and then get ready for the next one. Whereas with this type of training, you need to actually listen and see, okay, cool, this feels pretty good. I'm having a nice session. I'll hold for an extra 5 seconds to see how it goes. Oh, that wasn't so bad. I'll do an extra 2 seconds on top of that. Okay, that was good. 10 seconds extra. Okay, that was too much. Let's go back to that one again. And you actually have the ability to listen to your body and what it's telling you. And in that way, you should be less likely to burn out. You should be more likely to continue the sessions and the training all the way from when you start to when you're competing. And it should give you more awareness that you can use in other sort of aspects, either in your training in the pool, doing dynamics, doing line diving. This type of training really allows you to be more in tune with your body and what it is telling you. And that's a muscle in itself that you can learn to listen to and work. Like when I first started, I would hold my breath for a minute and a half, and I'd just sort of stop the breath hold and recover, not really knowing why. But as I sort of did more and more and more, I began to notice, okay, cool, I'm holding a little bit of tension in my ribs. Or, oh, that's a weird sensation in my throat. I wonder what that is. I'm going to try and play around with that and do a bunch of sessions where I just sort of see what that could be. Why am I experiencing that? Can I block it in some way? Can I push it somewhere else? This type of training allows you to do that and have that sort of focus, whereas CO2 and O2 tables, that's all taken away from you, and you just listen for the sound of that ding to breathe or to start. Cool? So first thing, no CO2 or O2 tables. People will tell you differently. And I think I got in trouble for describing it this way, but I sort of think that there's an old guard of training and a new guard of training, where the old guard is very much do torture tables, push to your max, push until you're almost blacking out and then do it again. Very little recovery time and then do a max. These are all things that are really putting a lot of stress on the body, but in the long term, you're going to end up hitting a wall. You're going to, it's not going to be good. The new guard, the new way of training, I would say is a lot more of being within your comfort zone. Playing within the comfort zone, dipping your toe out gently and putting it back in again, expanding the comfort zone. Either way, you will see improvements. It sort of depends, yeah, okay. Oh God, no, my ADD. The way that the new guard way of training, being playing within your comfort zone, tipping your toe out, back in again, all of that sort of allows you to expand your overall capacity rather than trying to push your capacity out. It's sort of a subtle way of thinking about it, but I think in terms of how the training happens, it is an important way to it's an important distinction to make, I think. Is someone just straight up DJing out there, or is karaoke time? Of course. What other time would it be, you know?
Brandon,
Yes.
it's a detail, but I feel it's important.
Yeah.
How much are you looking on the clock when you decide to, like, I want to push, a few seconds more?
I don't look at the clock. I do not. So when I do these types of training sessions, I have a previously recorded thing that I sort of play. Like what I gave to you guys for the Deep Week training. It's we're going to take a deep breath in 2 minutes. Okay, countdown 1 minute. 30, 20, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Deep breath in and relax. And then spend 1 minute, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Next breath. Go again. And doing it that way, I don't really care about time because I'm focusing on how I feel. And in that way, each breath hold becomes exclusively that one breath hold. It exists in its own vacuum. So you can very easily go from, okay, well that one didn't feel very good. I'll recover now and I'll do the next one and see how that one feels. Okay, cool. Okay, next one. You have the sort of times of 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10, 20, whatever, to sort of be a kind of guide. But overall, when I do these types of sessions, I try and not pay attention to the time at all. I find that, for me, as someone who doesn't like to know what the time is in particular, I find it very important. And it's also because when I do these sessions, I'm holding for like 4, 5, 6 minutes. So if I know the time at 1 minute, I'm like, cool, this is gonna suck. It's only been 1 minute out of however many. So I have different recordings that I use and listen to based on my own preferences and also based on what I'm training, which we talked about in the last class. Does that answer your question? Cool, awesome. Any other questions? Sick. Yeah. During a static, what am I thinking about? I think that comes into my next point. No, that's my third point. Okay, cool. The next point is about repetitive training and finding your anchor. So as I was talking about, we do lots of little sessions, right? We do a session that has a little bit of improvement, and then another one that's a little bit of improvement, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. We do a lot of them. In that way of training, specifically again the interval training and the high volume, low capacity or low volume training that I was talking about in the last class. Half you guys weren't there. So I train doing periodization, which is basically a way of getting an athlete from where they are now to where they want to be for a competition, for a max training cycle or whatever. You always start with high volume, low intensity to build your base. In those types of training sessions that usually last for about 2 months, I will do a lot of 2-minute intervals and do like 20 of them for a session. So 40 minutes of breath holding time in total, or of training time in total, where I decide how long I hold for and how long I recover for. In that time, a lot of what I'm working on is not actually the breath hold. The breath hold is not as important as the mental training, as the mental relaxation, as learning what a fully relaxed me feels like. And the more I do practice in that, the more I begin to notice, I'm holding a little bit of tension on the right side of my neck. Okay, now how can I release that away? Can I do a body scan? That's not really working. Can I give a little wiggle and see if that helps? You sort of begin to understand the language of your body, if you will. And that can only come from a lot of breath holding training. A lot of time just spent laying there on your back and focusing inward. As you do this type of training, I mentioned finding your anchor. the more you do this type of training, the more you will find out that you sort of have a baseline that is comfortable for you, that is relaxed for you. This is the relaxed me. And then, once you have that sort of down, you can begin to notice on a day when, oh, I'm holding tension in my neck. Or, oh, I was clenching my fists for some reason. I don't know why I was doing that. Let me relax them. Or, wow, my mind is really busy today. I wonder what that's about. Or my breath hold is not as long as it should be. Or it's more than it usually is. I wonder why that is. If you don't have that anchor, you don't have that sort of grounding point to be like, this is different from what it should be or what it is today. And again, by doing lots of repetitive training, where you just do the same thing again and again and again, get lots of experience with it, noticing how you feel, the easier it will become for you to have, know what that anchor point is, and also be able to pull yourself back to it when you need to. When I started my training, I was all over the place. I was holding tension in my neck, and I'd find myself clenching my fists or pointing my toes. And the more I got into it, the more I began to realize and learn how to relax those things. And as that continued, I learned to sort of incorporate that into other aspects of my life. When I was trying to fall asleep, I'd be like, oh, well, I'm holding tension in my neck. I wonder why that is. Let me try and relax that away. Or, my mind is really busy. Let me try and do some of the techniques that I have for relaxation that I use during static to also calm the mind. And it's gotten to the point now where, not to brag or anything, but I can basically sleep pretty much anywhere. I can fall asleep within 2 to 3 minutes. I can be sitting in a chair and just mentally take myself out of my body and send it somewhere else very quickly. And that just comes from a great awareness of what my relaxation point is in my body. And you can get there too. It just takes lots of repetition and lots of practice. The other thing I was going to say is that with this anchor point, it doesn't necessarily have to just be when you're laying still or sitting on a plane or whatever. This anchor point can also be used when you are diving on the line. If this is your anchor point, again, as you're going, you might say, okay, cool, I'm in my free fall now. Well, how can I'm feeling tension in my neck. You once again have that language in your body to know what is different from the relaxation that you want. And the more grounded this anchor is, the easier it is for you to sort of pull yourself back in whatever you're doing. So I was saying in the last class that with a long static breath hold, it makes all diving easier because as a part of this training, you get this anchor, you have this relaxation. So on top of that, you also know that you have a longer breath hold. So you can say, okay, well, I'm going to work on my technique today. I can really focus on how I'm moving my legs because I have that awareness in my body, and I also have this mental understanding of knowing where my body is relaxed and where it's not. And you can it allows you to sort of focus on other aspects of your dive rather than just being like, okay, I'm going to do a dive. Okay, let's go, and sort of just trying to get down to the bottom. Again, it takes time, but if you practice it, it's a muscle. You'll develop it, and you'll have an easier time diving. I don't count myself as a very particularly talented freediver. I just have spent way too long holding my breath in my bed and just have too much self-awareness of my body that I know that I will get down to the bottom if I need to, and I will come up just fine. Because I put in the time, I put in the work, and I have this mental relaxation. Be okay, I need to do a body scan as I begin my dive or as I begin my breath hold. It could then move into, okay, cool, my anchor is now, I can very quickly do the body scan all on my own, and now I need to remember to relax my throat because I know I have extra hard time relaxing my throat on my dives. And then it becomes, okay, cool, my body is purely relaxed, it's ready to go. I can now start to work on technique. But it all comes down to building this anchor and this anchoring point. And that comes from the training, comes from spending time holding your breath, doing body scans as you are holding your breath, noticing where you hold tension, working on mental techniques to relax everything. And generally, I think just have fun doing your training. If you're not having fun, that anchor becomes very weak and brittle. But if you are having lots of fun, you are doing the trainings, you are spending the time learning how your body responds to CO2 buildup, all that stuff, you'll have a strong anchor that you can pull yourself back to when you need to. Yeah?
Can you speak a little more to the mental exercise? So, like for example, when I'm stressed or anxious or nervous about something, I do breath work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one anchor.
Yeah.
But when I'm diving, of course, I can't do that.
Mm.
But it's almost the same sensation here.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the corresponding mental exercise that is without breathing?
What a great question to segue into our third point. So my third point is all about building your toolbox. What I always like to tell my coaching clients is that everything that we do together is just trying to put tools in your toolbox of things that you can use when you need to. Some days, you might have a routine of like, this tool always works really well for me. I like doing a body scan. That always works really well for me. I feel really good about it. It always gets me nice and relaxed before my dives. Then some days, every now and then, it might not work. But you still are there to dive. You've still paid to go on the buoy. You've gone on a boat. You are at a competition. You still have to do the dive. I mean, I guess you don't have to do the dive, but you usually want to do the dive, right? So if you have multiple tools in your toolbox, you can be like, hey, cool, this tool's not working today for this job. Let me try this tool instead. And so, like I said, everything that I try and do with my coaching clients is all about giving them tools to be ready for any situation. And so, let's see. What does that mean? Well, yeah, let's ask you, what kind of relaxation and sort of calming tricks do you guys use when you are stressed out, when you're getting ready for a dive, when you are calming the mind? What do you guys do?
Thinking the word relaxed.
Thinking of the word relaxed?
Yeah.
Yeah. So repeating a mantra, relax, relax, relax. Visualize. Yeah, that's a good one. What would you be visualizing? Mm-hmm. Visualizing something happy, something that makes you feel good. Sometimes if you remember back to a nice dive that you did in the past that felt really good. Seeing yourself with family members, friends, family. I know Adam, when he's doing his competition stuff, he likes to think of his family. He will visualize each one of them in front of him, and he will give each one of them a big hug and tell them how much he loves them. And I think he said that as he does, they turn into a ball of light that enters his body and helps him relax. And that's nice, right? Like, that feels really good. Visualizing is a good one. What else? Playing a song, singing a song in your head that is, relaxing, that's calming, that you enjoy. Yeah, good one.
Shrug and just like release.
Yeah, you can just sort of like, You give your body a little wiggle and just sort of feel the stress melt away. I often like to, as I'm doing a breathe up on the surface, I like to let the waves of the water just kind of like move me and just I feel myself become the water. The very cheesy thing. But I mean, as you do, you sort of just loosen up. I mean, I feel, like as I feel the water move me, I feel my spine relax. It feels really nice.
Focusing on the rhythm of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Letting it breathe in,
Yeah.
relax.
Yeah, yeah.
And that also helps because it makes you feel even more comfortable in the water too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, focusing on the rhythm of the water. Yeah, it's use the water. We're not trying to fight the water, we're trying to work with it. Yeah, I mentioned a body scan. Scanning the body, starting at the toes, moving up the feet, up the legs, relaxing each individual part until the body is completely relaxed, as we do in the meditation group that we do. Any other thoughts of tools that we can use? Focusing on the breathing is definitely something that you can do. I would, in terms of static, I would say focusing on the breathing is probably not one that you necessarily want to do, just because when you focus on your breathing, you take that control away from your body. And if we remember from our Wave 1 courses, our body, if we go into tidal breathing, controls our breath rate based on the amount of CO2 in our lungs. And it basically equalizes out the amount of CO2 that our body is happy with to the exact amount that it wants. Whereas if we begin to manipulate our breath, either breathing more, which is hyperventilation, or if we breathe less, which is hypoventilation, that sort of plays around with the CO2 that we bring down with us, which has its own implications. So I would say if you are trying to get relaxed, maybe just doing a few, like a deep breath in and then just letting it sort of shrug out, and then trying to go into tidal breathing, like then going into a body scan or a visualization. I think that would be a really good way to do it. Using it sort of as a cueing point to begin this relaxation as you get into the dive. I think that's totally fine. But in trying to sort of be like, okay, I'm going to take 3 breaths in, or 3 seconds in, and then 3 breaths out, that's already more than what our body needs. And we begin to hyperventilate, and that, of course, is not safe. Cool. Yes. Yes, hey.
Just wanted to check, there was a question related to the discomfort during dive at later durations of the dive, towards the end of the dive.
I think it's more like whether it's a static or a dive down the line. There's a certain point where this, I guess it's a mental tension that builds up that causes this tightness that might, I don't know if I'm the only one who gets that way, this tightness that comes down here. And if I were on land, I would breathe, or I would squeeze things and release things.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't work in water.
Mm.
So I'm trying to figure out, and maybe this is more of my journey, is what can I do to like soften my brain?
Mm.
I don't know if that's attention to concentration on where I ever get to that point, but
Sure.
then how do I do that? While I feel like, and I've said this before, I'm like a fun house of mirrors in my own head when I'm doing statics.
Of course, yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
It's a little nuts in there.
totally.
I don't want to be alone by myself.
You're not.
You are not. You are definitely not. My brain is also a fun house during my statics. I've just developed what's right for me. I have my own tools of how I get through my breath holds that you just need to learn how to develop in yourself. And again, that's why I say, put a bunch of tools in your toolbox. Play around, see what works. Okay, this tool doesn't work. I hate visualization. Never helps me. Repeating a mantra. Oh, this actually works pretty well. Okay, I'll use this for a little bit and see how it goes. Maybe I can become more adept at using this tool. After a while, maybe you find that a different tool works even better. So you go to that. This, I think static is very much a journey of, God, this is so cheesy, a journey of self-discovery. Because, you know, as you train, you are also training, you're also changing as a human, right? The things that relax you before no longer relax you. New things do relax you. You have different stresses going on in your life. You have different things that are, you know, bombarding you every day. And so I also, my sort of other point with this is that this should be play. This should not be super hardcore regimented. I only use this tool. I only do this one thing. I only do this in this one particular way. You should be playing. You should be having fun. You should be doing different things, trying new things, seeing what works for you. And as you continue to play and train and work and discover yourself, you will realize more about who you are, how you respond to stress and to tension, how you respond to CO2, obviously, and how to sort of, again, using the anchor, pull yourself back to this very relaxing state. Cool? So, for me, God, time is flying. For me, how my breath holds work and the tools that I use are as follows. So I am laying on my back. I'm doing a body scan. Scan the body for any tension, for any tightness, relaxing the toes all the way up the legs. Again, same as we've done in our visualization classes each day. My mind is totally relaxed. Then reach over, I press the play button on my audio. That begins the session that I'm doing. From there, I start at 2 minutes, and I give myself 2 minutes just to relax. And in that time, I wipe my mind. I make it blank. If I have a thought, I will acknowledge it. And then, for me, I'm a very visual type of person. Like when I think of things, I see things. So as I see a thing come into view, I will let it become nice and crisp. And then almost as if it's coming towards me, I will let it blur and dust away behind me. And it goes back to a black screen almost. And I try and hold on to that darkness for as long as I can. I might also try and make the darkness even more dark by relaxing my face, by slightly closing my eyes, by letting my eyes move a little bit in my head. Those things all, for me, help relax me quite a bit. Countdown happens, take a full final breath. From there, I immediately begin a body scan of the muscles I just used to take a full final breath. I scan the ribs, I scan the diaphragm, I scan the chest, the shoulders, the back, I scan the neck up into the face, relaxing the muscles around my mouth, my tongue, my jaw. I let all those things go totally loose, and then I let my mind wander. I think about work. I think about something I'm going to go to the grocery store later or what I want to get. I think about, I want to watch a movie later, or maybe I'm going to play a video game, or what I was doing in a game, playing with my dogs. I just let my mind wander and do whatever it wants to do. If I have anything that comes up that's stressful, I again acknowledge it, and then let it move past, and I let it be replaced by something else. After that point, that's sort of like for me, it's like the 3-minute type of my side of my breath hold where I'm feeling good, I'm feeling comfortable, I don't have any contractions. It's the training. It's the training. At around 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes, I begin to feel a little bit of tension growing in my stomach, in my ribs, and that's my sign that I know that a first contraction is coming. I will then say, okay, cool, body, thank you, I appreciate you letting me know. We'll try and hold off for a little bit longer, give it like 10 seconds, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, cool. Sure, that's about 10 seconds. Okay, now we can have the contraction. And I'll let myself have a big contraction. And then I'll be like, okay, cool. There you go, body. You've had your first contraction. We're now in the next phase of the breath hold. This is now the part where we have built up enough CO2 that you are like, okay, cool. Things are happening. this is more CO2 than I'm used to. Let's start to breathe. And that's when I sort of enter my space captain mode, where I see myself in a cockpit in my head, looking out at a bunch of like little mini-me's running around. There are big screens in front of them. There are big like red warning lights going off, and they're like, there's too much CO2, we gotta breathe. And I often like to slap one of them across the face, like the Star Trek thing of like, calm down, man. And like, I'll tell them, you know, this is CO2. We have plenty of oxygen left. We've done plenty of training. We know what we're capable of. You are just being dramatic. And as I do that, the contractions get less and less and less, partially from this sort of visualization, this thing that I do, but also from just knowing and learning how to relax through contractions over time, to a point where I can get them down to barely a little blip. The first contraction is always a big one. It's the signal, and then from there on, they're nice and small. As we continue on the breath hold more and more and more, it gets to a point where the contractions start to build more and more. They get, you know, more, stronger, stronger. And at that point, I shift focus to more of trying to think of them as a pulse of energy, a pulse of relaxing energy. Because what's happening with contraction is your muscles are literally contracting. But what we often forget is that they release afterwards. So as they contract, that tightness, as they release, I feel and almost visualize a wave of energy that relaxes me going over the rest of my body. So I make sure that any area that is tight is relaxed again. And it's basically just a over me, over me. And that feels really good. Also at this point, there's a lot more CO2, and so I begin to feel a bit high, which is fun. For those of you who don't know, if you have a lot of CO2 built up in your body, it makes you feel a little dizzy, a little like, ooh, floaty, and you can get to a point where you are just kind of like zoned off on some other planet, which is super fun. It's great. I recommend it. From there, as we get towards the end of my breath hold, I will open my eyes and I will begin to look for signs of hypoxia. I will look for any tingly sort of things in my eyes. I will begin to really try and feel if, I'll try and really notice what my contractions are like. I know from experience as I get to the end of my breath hold, what they feel like. And so I try and I have a difference between those contractions and the contractions during the fight phase, as it will be called. And so I sort of know where I'm at because of this understanding within my body. Then whenever I'm ready, I just recover. Strong recovery breaths, give my okay sign, say I'm okay, and that's my breath hold. What works for me might not work for you. There are things to be learned from when someone talks about static. But again, they're all tools to put into your toolbox. You might love the idea of being a space captain and smacking the hell out of some mini-me version of you. You might think that that's really stupid and cheesy and hate it, and you don't want to do it. And that's okay too. What really matters is putting in the time and figuring out what kind of tools work best for you and playing. And if you do that, you should always have fun, and you should always be slowly progressing and hopefully never get to a point where you hit a wall or you injure yourself or you continue that scratch. And as something I like to say a lot of things, but something that I will say is that a lot of how I do my coaching, I feel is almost like rehab for static people. because so many people come to me and they're like, I hate static, but I know I need to do it. I'm training for a competition and I know that it's going to be really good for me, but I just hate it. I need help with the mental side of things. I need help with, figuring out how to find this enjoyment again. And I don't know, that's what this style of training does, is it rehabilitates you in a way to actually getting to a point where you can enjoy static again, which is a really good thing, I think. So that's my TED Talk. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
So what I do as a final out breath for the final breath is like I kind of do like a forceful out breath.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's a little bit like violating the whole nervous system and the muscles as well. So I'm not sure if it helps more or it like perturbs the whole system a little bit, because
Sure.
it feels like, and then by the time I get the full in breath, it kind of goes away, but I'm not sure it doesn't leave some disturbance or.
Sure. So in an ideal world where everything is perfect and you have complete control of your body, you would just go from tidal breathing right into a full breath. That's the optimal level of CO2 in your body, in your lungs, sitting there hanging out. If you do want to do a sort of purge breath, as they're called, before taking a final breath, that is okay. But as you said, you sort of lose some of that relaxation. And through a lot of the training, you will learn how to take a purge breath, how to do that in a way that doesn't actually mess with your relaxation as much. It's sort of like how when you're on the buoy and you're like, cool, I've done my relaxation phase, I'm ready to start my dive, and then you have a really crappy duck dive. And your feet flop over, and then you start to have to kind of swim your way back down, use a bunch of energy to get back down again. You've lost all that relaxation, right? But if you have a really smooth duck dive, and you can very easily transition from relaxation phase on the surface, nice duck dive down, everything's relaxed, you can carry that relaxation with you down the line. And similarly with this, if you are able to learn how to carry that relaxation from the, your relaxation phase before the breath hold into the breath hold itself, then that's awesome. You gain that extra sort of amount of relaxation that you no longer have to take a moment to be like, okay, cool. Now I have to scan this area because I know that I used a lot of it to take that final breath or to push that breath out. Does that answer your question? Cool. Sick.
Quick announcement. In 20 minutes, 5 beauticians will be here in reception to give everyone manicures and pedicures.
Yes.
Success!
He's done it. The madman's done it. Awesome. Other questions? Yes.
I've done very limited static, but I found when I do it that I was concerned that I might passively exhale through my nose, cheat myself.
Sure.
And so that led me to then getting a clip from my nose.
Yeah.
Is that something of actual concern, or is that just a mental thing?
So I know some people who accidentally breathe out through their nose when they do statics. If that is an issue for you, you can put a nose clip on. I would say that one of the reasons, I told you I don't think I'm a very gifted freediver or anything, but I've just done a lot of dry static. And as a part of that, I've done breath holds with no nose clip and I keep my glottis closed. And then I will open the glottis and keep my soft palate closed. And I'll move air between my oral cavity and then down past my glottis towards my lungs. And I'll play with that during a breath session. And as a result, I think that has given me a lot of extra awareness of my oral, nasal cavities, all that kind of good stuff. So when I started doing mouth fill, when I started doing all of my Frenzling stuff, I didn't have to think about it because, okay, cool, my soft palate is open in this position because I know that my glottis is closed, or I know that I have closed off my glottis and my mouth fill is open and my soft palate is down. I gained that sort of awareness. So, yes, you can put a nose clip on. That's totally fine. I would say as sort of a way to always be learning, try playing around with moving the air from your oral cavity to your down into your throat and back into your lungs, and then shifting it around and see how that goes.
And then an extension beyond that is obviously when we're breathing up to take it like a dive, we're only of course limited to breathe through our mouths, but naturally we're far better off to breathe through our nose. Do you ever play with the variation of allowing yourself to breathe through your nose or your mouth before doing your statics, or do you kind of just let that happen organically?
I do not. I train, we talked about this in the periodization class, where you train as specifically as you possibly can to how you're going to compete or how you're going to do the activity. So just because your body gets used to it that way. My body has gotten used to taking a full final breath through the mouth. If I were to do it through the nose, my body would be confused. I don't feel like I would be able to take a full enough breath because I've learned this sort of routine of full final breath, relax, all the stuff. So I would say in that respect, try and do it as specific as you possibly can to how you're going to be doing the competing or the activity itself. Any other questions? Yeah.
Can you still do the mental process for the contraction when the frequency is very high, like
That's how your contractions go?
at the end, maybe after 2 to 3 minutes? Yeah.
Okay, cool. Are they fight phase? Are they very big, like body rocking contractions, or are they very small?
It's like
Okay, cool. Through training and through learning how to relax, you should be able to learn how to control them, to keep them smaller. For me, when I began my training, I had quite big contractions. They were very body rocking contractions. As I've done more of this, they've gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, even like to the point when I'm doing my competition dives. They are not as bad as they used to be. They're manageable. They're big. Like they still move me. You can see them on the surface of the water, but they're not like the big body rocking contractions I used to get. And again, I think that comes from increasing your CO2 tolerance. I think it comes from learning how to mentally relax and control the body, and also mentally knowing where your anchor is and being able to pull yourself back to it again. But it comes with time. So it's not just here's the switch, flip it, and contractions are small now. I'm standing here in front of you with basically 4.5 years of 3 breath sessions per week, 4 sessions per week, just lying in my bed, breathing for the last 4.5 years. So I've done a lot of this. And over time you can get there, but it's not a flip. Yeah?
So, can you tell me why I get contractions in my throat as opposed to my diaphragm? Or I sense it more here or even back here?
It's a thing that happens. I used to get them quite a bit in my throat. I felt the urge to swallow quite a bit. Over time, with training, with repetition, I learned how to push them down into my lungs and into my diaphragm and have them sort of all be centralized there. I notice when I'm holding tension now, and I can relax it away. Comes with time. Sorry? No, I don't think so. Especially if you're doing static, you can swallow all you want. It becomes a bit more of an issue if you are doing a dive where you need a mouthful. But theoretically, in that case, you shouldn't be getting contractions until you get to the bottom anyway. And then once you do get to the bottom, you let any air that's left in your mouthful just go back down anyway. So at that point, it shouldn't really be an issue. But again, through training, you should be able to move it around and sort of control where it goes. Yes?
After you're going through a 2-month period of having high volume, low intensity, how do you make that transition? Are you adding 15 seconds on top of these 2-minute intervals, or are you switching to okay, now I do 5 3-minutes or something along those lines?
So I shift gears. So I then go from the 2 × 20 to sessions where I do maybe 10 breath holds total, where I do them on a 3-minute interval, like 2 3-minute intervals, 6 4-minute intervals, and 2 5-minute intervals. And in that time, again, I decide how long I hold for and how long I recover for. But in, I don't know, shameless self-plug, that's what I do as a breath training coach. We work together to basically figure out what your plan is, what your goals are, where you're at now, and I give you training sessions to sort of get you to where you want to be going. And I periodize that all for you. But generally, yeah, you would switch from the 20 times 2 with lots of focus on mental, internal, relaxation, that sort of stuff, building the base, experiencing CO2, to moving over to medium interval type stuff where you're doing 3 4 5, where you're building up more oxygen, you're building up the tolerance to hypoxia, to low oxygen in your body. Longer breath holds, and just sort of experiencing that. Yeah.
60% to sort of 80%.
60 to 80, yeah.
So
Yep.
you go from the 60 to the 80 for the...
Maybe 70 for that type of training, and then 80 to 90 for a little bit of a max area. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. When I work with my clients, I more am all about when you have time. If you have 3 days per week, that's fantastic. If you have 4 days per week, that's fantastic. Anything more, I think, gets a bit close to burnout. Anything less, 2 is okay, 1 is okay. I'd rather, the optimal would be 3 to 4 times per week, I would say. And then combining that with any sort of other type of stuff that you're doing, you know, any kind of yoga, any kind of other depth diving, pool training, gym training, taking all that into account and building a program around that. Cool. Any other questions? No. Sick. Okay. Thank you guys. That was fun. Yay. What's my website? For coaching, it's through the Freediving Family. So if you go to freedivingfamily.com, I offer coaching directly there.
Oh, wait, most important question. What's your PB?
My competition PB in the pool is 7 minutes and 14 seconds. My dry PB laying in bed is 7.5 minutes. So my dry PB is longer than my competition and pool PB. Sorry? Because I'm more relaxed in bed. I've done an absolute metric fuck ton of dry training. A metric fuck ton. Yeah, technical term.
Super impressive, man.
Thank you. It's come from a long 4 years of training.